Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast and the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the show. I am glad that you're here today. Our topic is love and logic parenting. And the origin of coming up with this topic was, you've probably heard me if you've listened to more than one of our episodes, of my episodes, talk about the love and logic parenting style. And on our group call this weekend, there were several dads, including myself, who are going through challenges with their kiddos. And this ranged with kiddos from 2 to 3 to their 20s, actually. And which is understandable, right? We have our challenges with our kiddos from the time that they're born until the time that they, even after they leave the nest, frankly, right? And they don't come with an owner's manual or any kind of diagram that helps us, playbook that helps us to know what to do, when, etc. So it is definitely a challenge. But what dismayed me a little bit was some comments around how therapists have conveyed to some of these dads how to talk to their children, how to approach some disciplinary issues with their children. And I know that I have run into some challenges with more than one therapist around parenting styles. And I know that there is a push now in family law court and in general, I feel in our society, saying things like, 12 and 13-year-olds can make their own decisions, etc. So we're going to chat about some of these ways in which we can mitigate these parenting problems. I neglected to welcome some of our new members, so let me pause there real quick. I already started onto my rant about this. As you can tell, I'm feeling a little bit, or maybe you can't tell, but you will, a little bit passionate about this, because I feel that it's incredibly important for us as dads to be able to approach this in an important way. So let me introduce and extend a welcome to our newest members of the Divorced Advocate community. Those are Gabriel and Peter, Mark, Sean, and Kay. If you're not part of the membership community, check it out at thedivorcedadvocate.com website under the membership page. Behind the membership wall, you'll find the extended podcast, this extended episode with all the information around love and logic, as well as more blog posts and the access to the app and the more than 50 courses that are inside of the app that can help you as well. Group meetings, coaching, and some office hours, some free coaching as well. So check it out. There's all kinds of resources for you there at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Okay, back to love and logic parenting. So as I was saying, I have just been this whole push that 12 and 13-year-olds and kids really need to they can make their own decisions. And we hear this quite often, I find, when there is some sort of parental alienation going on. And then the one parent says, well, they don't want that. And then they go to the therapist, and then the therapist says, well, you should let the kid make their own decision. And then you got the alienating parent, and then the therapist, and then they go to court, and then the court says, well, that's what the kid wants. But you know what? 12 and 13 and 14 and even 18, 19 and 20-year-olds really don't know what they want. Their prefrontal cortex has yet to fully develop, so they do not have those skills just physiologically to be able to make some of those decisions. And so I say all of this to say that when I was having conversations with some of the guys on our group meeting, there were some parenting philosophies, some parenting skills that came out that troubled me a bit. And not that there's just one particular way that is better or worse, but this whole philosophy around spending so much time talking to them, catering to what their wants are, to what their needs are. So there's a fine line and there's a balance to this. I am finding in the therapeutic community, in the family law environment, that in our society in general, this is really, really beginning to get out of hand and just really becoming detrimental, as we see by some of the mental health issues that are going on. I'm not going to get into specifics, but the prevalence, the increase in the number of suicides alone among teenagers and young kids is just absolutely alarming. So I want to talk to you today about the Love and Logic parenting way. I've alluded to it before. I've sent you to their website. It is a phenomenal parenting philosophy. I had the blessing of running across when my oldest was very young, 3-4 years old, started to implement it then. It is developed by Jim Fay and Charles Fay, and I can't remember their partner's name, but they're out of Golden, Colorado. You can check out their website or Google Love and Logic Institute. All the information that I've got today is from all of the years that I have worked. I've taken a class. I just went and saw another presentation by them just a month or two ago that was given at our school district. And so it is just an absolute awesome parenting philosophy. And so, and it's really skills. It is skills for you to be able to specifically implement in helping to raise your kids. So again, there's no manual that comes with them. There isn't a playbook, do this, etc. This is the closest that I have found to being within the philosophy that I believe is the best way in which to raise kids. And so let's talk first about the 2 rules of Love and Logic, and then I'm going to get into the 8 essential skills. So I'm going to dive deep into this today. This is going to be a long episode. If you are listening to the free podcast and you want to hear more, jump on to thedivorcedadvocate.com, grab a free membership. And for the first 7 days, you can catch this podcast as well as get some of the other things. I hope that, I'm sure that you're going to find some value in that, and hopefully you'll carry on as a continuing member. The first rule of Love and Logic is adults set firm limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, threats, or repeated warnings. Now, let me say that again. The first rule of Love and Logic is adults set firm limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, threats, or repeated warnings. Now, this is really incredibly important that adults remember that it's their job to set these limits. This is our job to be able to set limits, and we don't all know, but we should know, and studies show that children that have limits, that have discipline and structure in their lives, are happier children. They also remember that it's the children's job to test them, right? So while we are setting these limits, we also don't get upset or angry about the fact that they are testing these limits, because that's what they're supposed to do as children. And as a result, we only set limits that we know are enforceable. So it's not something that's ridiculous or out of hand. And then we also provide choices within limits to share healthy control and thinking. And we're going to dive into this a little bit more when we go into the skills part of it, but it is really absolutely phenomenal. The second rule of Love and Logic is when children misbehave and cause problems, adults hand these problems back in loving ways, right? Kind of like when they're adults, the problems in their lives are going to be their problems, and there's not going to be somebody, mommy or daddy. So this whole philosophy is predicated upon the fact that we are trying to raise healthy, functional adults, right? That's our job as parents, is to raise them to be healthy and functioning adults. So by doing this, by when they misbehave and cause problems by handing back the problems to them in a loving way. It's the same thing that's going to happen to them when they're adults. Is they're going to have these problems. They're going to have to deal with them. We're not going to always be there. There's not going to always be somebody there for them. And this is a huge, huge lesson that needs to be, I guess, reinstated or reinvigorated or rediscovered or something, because it just does not feel like this is something that is being emphasized to children these days. So those two rules, again, are adults set firm limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, threats, or repeated warnings. And when children misbehave and cause problems, adults hand these problems back in loving ways. And so this second rule, adults hope that children make plenty of small, affordable mistakes. And this whole mindset is when they're younger, particularly if you have kiddos that are in the toddler stage or the adolescent stage or young adult stage, these mistakes that they make are much less expensive than the mistakes that they can make when they're teens or young adults or adults, right? So making a mistake like stealing something when they're little, or saying a lie when they were little, or talking back when they're little, and learning the consequences of those choices is much less expensive than when they are teens or adults and maybe drink too much and get in the car and crash it, or God forbid, kill somebody, or go bankrupt, or have a divorce like we have or are going through, right? So the consequences are less expensive and they're affordable mistakes when they're younger. Adults also provide strong doses of empathy before holding them accountable for the consequences of such mistakes. And we're going to go into the empathy part of it. It is a huge part of the Love and Logic philosophy, and really of life and having healthy, functioning relationships with anybody. The next thing is adults delay consequences when necessary so that they can respond with wisdom and compassion. So each of these last two that I've described, the empathy part and delaying the consequences, are two that I have really, really struggled with, because I get all of a sudden I want to just do something, say something, and have it. And so they teach you these skills around having the empathy and also delaying consequences so that you can get your brain back if you get into an irritated or upset or angry state, and then respond with wisdom and compassion. And then children are given the gift of owning and solving their own problems. So we'll talk about some skills. We'll talk about specifically about that, about them owning their problems, because the sooner they learn to own their problems, even as young kids, the sooner they're going to learn that their choices have consequences, and that is going to lead to them being healthy and functioning adults, because when they leave us, or when, at least in the beginning, when they're not around us, we know that they're going to be making healthy and good choices for themselves. Okay, so those are the two rules of Love and Logic. Let us talk about 8 essential skills for implementing Love and Logic. And I'm going to read the 8 off to you, and then we will go into each one in depth. The first is neutralize arguing. Wouldn't we all like to neutralize arguing? Definitely for those of us that are listening that have teenagers. Number 2, delay the consequences. Number 3, empathy. Number 4, the uh-oh song. The number 5 essential skill of Love and Logic is develop positive relationships. Number 6, set limits with enforceable statements. Number 7, sharing control within limits. And number 8, guide children to own and solve their own problems. All right, let's start with number 1, neutralizing arguing. So there's a step-by-step process to this neutralizing arguing.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does, there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com or give me a call directly at 720-255-1021.
The first step is to go brain dead. And you're going to love this one. It works phenomenally. And it does so because it does no good to reason with a child who wants an argument. If you have a teenager, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They want to argue for the sake of arguing. And so it just does no good to argue with them. The second step of this, so the first one is go brain dead. The second step, and I'm going to walk you through an example of this in a sec. The second step is choose a one-liner and say it with empathy. Okay, so I got those first two down really good. I still to this day struggle with the empathy part of it, saying it with empathy, because I get annoyed and irritated, and then I just want to my go-to, my trigger is like snap back. And like I remember when my oldest was first a teen and she started with this stuff, and then I was immediately snapping back and like just getting into it, like being a teen with her. And I remember one day just stopping and thinking, oh my God, I'm reverting back to being a teenage boy by like getting into engaging this with my daughter. And trust me, this takes time to learn. This was after 7-8 years of implementing love and logic with that daughter and my other daughters, and it still just snuck up on me, and I didn't realize it until I did. And so if you're listening to this and then you get in and you look at the love and logic stuff, and we're going to talk about this, just take your time with it, pick one thing, get good at it. And then I've gone to classes year over year over year as refreshers. It's just an ongoing thing, just like any skill that you're learning. Okay, so choosing the one-liner and saying it with empathy. So going brain dead and then step 3 is do not attempt to think. Choose a one-liner you like and become a broken record. So a one-liner would be something like I love you too much to argue with you. Other ones are I respect you too much to argue, or this is a good one. And Charles, not Charles, but his dad, Jim Fay, the one I just listened to or went to a seminar a couple months ago. I know, that is his one-liner. I know. So they'll say anything, you just say, I know. I hate you. I know. That isn't fair. I know. It is really an awesome one. I haven't utilized that one quite as much as I need to. I use the other one, which is I love you too much to argue. Another one is probably so. That's not fair. Probably so. I'm not going to do that. Probably so. So that's what it looks like, is you're just going to continue to say that. And then the fourth step is if the child continues to argue, calmly repeat the one-liner. So they keep arguing. So use the enforceable statements such as or then use an enforceable statement such as I'm happy to discuss this further when I get home from work, or I'm happy to discuss it with you after all your toys are picked up. Just remember to continue with what you're doing. A child won't argue long without an audience. So that's a key part to it. Also, if they're engaging and this is not a time, then you need to just go brain dead. Okay, so you're going to neutralize the arguing by going brain dead. You're going to choose a one-liner. Like, I know, that's a great one. Just try to remember that. I know, that's an easy one to remember. I know. And then if they start going at it, it's just, I know. And then they say something else, Well, you don't listen to me. I know. Are you going to do that? I know. They just keep coming and just keep saying, I know. And then if they continue, you can say something. We can discuss it when we get home, or I'll be happy to do this after dinner, or whatever it is. But you can use an enforceable statement like that, but just continue the brain dead and repeat over and over again. You will be amazed at how well it is able to neutralize the arguing eventually, because like I said, there's no audience anymore. You continue to what you're doing, they will go away. Now they might go do something else to annoy you or to get your attention, but just know that is going to come up. Okay, so the second skill I want to talk about is delayed consequences. So what's the problem with immediate consequences? There's nothing wrong with immediate consequences if you can think of one off of the top of your head and on the fly while a kid is misbehaving or hassling you. The challenge, like I mentioned for me, and this might not be you, but is that it happens in the heat of the moment, in the middle of doing something else, and trying to figure it all out in my head and come up with a consequence immediately. Usually for me, at least for me, looks like immediately getting angry and then dropping the hammer with some sort of consequence, which is not necessarily going to be the best consequence that you want to create for them. So you can do something to delay the consequence, like saying, oh no, this is sad. I'm going to have to do something about this, but we'll talk about it later. Try not to worry. That's one that Jim Fay uses all the time. Oh, Foster Cline. That's the other one. Jim Fay and Foster Cline and Charles Fay are the three founders of Love and Logic. Anyway, back to the delayed consequences. Oh no, this is sad. I'm going to have to do something about this, but we'll talk about it later. Try not to worry about it. That is just an awesome one, especially that try not to worry about it at the end makes them start thinking about what it was that they did, not being mad at you for giving a consequence right away. Another one is, I'm too angry to think straight. I make better decisions when I'm calm. We'll talk then. That's another one you can say. And so when you develop the consequence, make sure that first you can ask suggestions for others. But if you take a class, a Love and Logic class, a lot of these you're going to learn some of the consequences in there for the age appropriate or the age appropriate consequences for each of your different kids. So also get support from all adults in the child's life, like teachers and nannies and relatives, before creating this consequence. Now, here's a big challenge in the households where we have more of a parallel parenting than a co-parenting that's going on, is your kiddo may not hear the same thing that they're hearing at your house, or if it's like my situation, they're going to hear the opposite, which is, dad is ridiculous, that is not right, oh, I'm sorry, blah blah blah, you're not wrong, in doing everything to just absolutely undermine and counter the consequence that you might be taking. But just know that that's okay, because you need to provide the structure in your environment, in your household, and this can even be helpful and more beneficial if you have somebody, because the kids are drawn to the structure and to the discipline, like I said earlier. So it's okay. Don't feel like it'll all get undermined just because the other parents, your ex or soon to be ex, is not supporting you in this. Also, plug the holes in your plan. Make sure that it works. So think it all through. We were talking about this on the group call this weekend, and we were talking about getting outside and getting the kids to camp. And one of the guys was saying that he can't even get them in the car. And then we were strategizing ways that you could get them in the car and already have the camping trip set up. And then one of the other guys said he did that, but he didn't have all the holes plugged, and it turned out to be a debacle. So you just need to have that planned out well in advance. So with immediate consequences, so here, I just want to make this quick point. With immediate consequences, you may react before taking time to anticipate potential problems with the consequences they're providing. React before getting essential support from other adults or other teachers or parents, and then doing discipline when the adult and child are too angry to think, and then lose control and do things or say things they wish they hadn't. Okay. Yeah, I already mentioned that. Just want to reiterate that it's probably a good standard operating procedure to delay the consequence every time, because if you don't, it's because I get immediately triggered and irritated. And then that's just not the way it's impossible if you're doing, so you can't be in two emotions at the same time. So it'll be impossible if you get irritated or upset with them to also be in empathy. So if you're in anger or upset or irritation, you're not going to be able to be in empathy and dole out the consequence in the way that you're supposed to. That is going to be effective. That's going to keep them from focusing on you, and instead in turn focus on their own choices that they're making. So just try to do the delayed consequences as much as possible, unless you get it down to be like an expert. There are some things especially when they're younger, that that you can use the uh-oh song about and just take them to the room or whatever it might be. But and I think maybe I'm thinking about this in the context of older with teens and needing more strategy, because they're a lot smarter when they're teens in how they approach some of this stuff. So see what works for you, and and let me know. Okay, number 3 is empathy. Empathy opens the heart and the mind to learning. Anger and frustration shut the door on learning. So empathy makes it harder for kids to blame us for the consequences of their poor decision. So then, threats or lectures make it really easy for kids to blame us for the consequences they experience. So threatening, lecturing, this just doesn't work. The love and logic approach won't work without the empathy. In fact, if there's no empathy, there is no love, right? And there's no logic. So you've got to have the empathy. And I'm telling you, it can be very, very challenging. That's why the delayed consequences I've got first. Stop and just say, that's sad. I'm going to have to do something about this, but it's not going to be right now. Or I'm too angry to think straight. I make better decisions when I'm calm. We'll talk then. So just know you're going to have to get in tune with empathy. If you don't know what empathy is, look it up, learn what it is, and try to understand what empathy is, and talk about empathy with a friend or a family member or a therapist on what empathy is. It's just relating with somebody else and putting yourself in not necessarily putting yourself in their shoes, but letting them know that, it's okay, oh man, it's just a bummer. I can't imagine what you feel like, or can't imagine what that's like to go through, etc. Just empathizing with somebody. So how do you remember to use empathy when you're angry? Memorize one empathetic statement. So here are some examples. Oh no, that's never good. But you got to say it in an empathetic way. Oh, this is so sad. That's the one that I use. Oh, that's so sad. Or what a bummer. Or this must be tough. Or, oh, that's the one Jim Fay uses. Oh, he does the, oh, I know. Oh, I know. It's really funny when he talks about it. Remember, you are sad, not mad. So when you get into that empathetic state, you're sad. You're sad for them. You're like, oh man, that's never good. Or, oh, that's so sad. Or, oh, what a bummer. Or this must be tough. Or just so here's the thing. Your nonverbal communication in this is really, really important. They will be able to tell if you're not sincere. We can always tell when somebody's not being sincere, right? Kids will know if you're not being sincere. So what if you're, okay, I had to put this one in there. What if you're too angry to think straight? All right. Just use that phrase that I used earlier, which is, I'm too angry to think straight. I make better decisions when I'm calm. We'll talk then. And then just walk out of the room. Keep doing what you're doing. Go away. If they're escalating and continuing on, just remove yourself from the situation. Don't get angry back. It just does not work out. Okay. So instead of making threats or giving warnings, here's the one, and this is great for younger kids in particular. This doesn't quite work on the teenage kids, although my daughters now I've used it so long that when they'll do something and I go, they just know automatically that they need to re-examine what they're doing. So here's what it looks like. Sing and take action. Maybe you'll carry your child into the bedroom and say, looks like you need a little bedroom time or private time to pull yourself together. Like this was one when they're having a fit when they're little. I'd say, looks like you need a little time out, or maybe looks like you need a little time in your bedroom, or maybe whatever it might be. But the kind of is like, it's like the warning, not the warning, but just the trigger that, something is coming. Or you could do something like, looks like you need a little crib time or playpen time, or maybe you just need to take away an object and say calmly, all gone. That's good when they're little. Whatever action you'll take, it's going to begin with And why is this? Because singing this simple song really communicates, you're such a good kid and I'm such a good parent that I can handle you without yelling, without frowning, and without stressing myself out. Parents also report that singing also helps them stay calm. So that is true. Like the thing did help me stay a little bit calm. And that is a great point. That is the point is you're trying to make, is that if you get angry or you get bent out of shape or you frown or you stress or you yell, they have actually taken the power away from you. And as parents, we always want to be in control, right? And we want to have power around the situation, which we should as adults, and have control of the situation. So when we get angry and frustrated, we're just giving that power away. So the is great. It's just and then taking the toy away, or and removing them from the situation or putting them in timeout. That's fine. You could always also gently lead or carry them to their room. Obviously, you need to make the room safe beforehand. You can give your child a choice about the door. Do you need the door shut or do you need it open? If a child comes out before they're ready, then shut the door and make sure that it stays shut. I remember having to sit at my daughter's door when she came out before her timeout was over, and then having to close the door and then having her opening and come out and having to sit there and hold the door closed throughout the entire timeout. So there may be strategies, but after a while, then she got it. She didn't even need the door closed. It was just in her room, or then we actually implemented a timeout stare when they were old enough. So you can turn the lock around. You can put a towel on top of the door. You can wedge it tightly so they're not strong enough to pull it open. Put a latch on the outside, whatever is safe. Just remember, stay outside the door, but not talking through the door. So it's stuff like that and strategies like that you're going to have to figure out in order to stay consistent with this. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.